What's going on, guys? Greg here, and in this video I want to start to discuss the concept of layering in synths. I did one video on layering that was more based on drums. Um, in synths, it's a little bit of a different, I guess you could say it's a little bit of a different um, monster, demon, whatever you want to call it. Um, Same concepts, though, they all really do apply. So I have a little rhythmic bass here, and I'll play it for you. And that's made up of three different elements. I have a sub element and two mid range elements. And the tonality is really coming from the mid range elements, and I'll show you that real quick. This is pretty much just a sine wave in Serum here, this sub, just a sine wave. I have an LFO hooked up to the cutoff, and that is the case on of all three of these synthesizers. Oh man, why did that just happen? Okay. I have a little bit of tube distortion. Not really sure if that's doing anything, but I have it. And EQ, pretty basic sound design, not very hard. And all this is really intended to do is take over that low end and give the sound some weight. I have a fab filter over here, which is rolling off some of the lows and rolling off the highs because, like I said, I really have the mid-range taken care of by my other two elements here. So I didn't need a lot of that. I just wanted a little bit of warmth on this low-end bass. And then the bass rider, now this is a cool little plug-in. It's almost like automation. This, depending on how you set it, is going to turn down peaks and boost lows. So whatever is lacking in volume will get a boost. Whatever is way too high in volume is going to get a cut. So this is pretty cool. This is a nice little plugin to have in your arsenal. I'm not going to go real in depth into it, but you should definitely check it out and consider getting it for your own setup. Let's see. Moving right along. This is just a mid-range element. This is panned a little bit to the left, and I'll show you what it sounds like. Really small, really almost sad without the bass there. But let's take a look at the sound design. Pretty basic, same thing. Like I said, LFO hooked up to a cutoff. This is actually a saw wave down an octave with some unison, and we'll detune. I have the EQ cutting out the low end and a little bit of that top end. I don't really want a lot of that top end. Like I said, this is a mid-range element, and in the rest of this song, I'm not going to play it, but there are other elements taking over the higher end of the frequency spectrum, so I didn't need a lot of that high end. So I was really designing these sounds to fit in the mix, and that is a pretty important part of sound design. If you design everything to work together, then when you get to actually mixing, it's going to make your lives so much easier. So yeah, I took out the top end and the low end. I got a little bit of a hyper on it. It looks like I have some of the hyper and a lot of the dimension, which is why it's kind of sneaking over into both sides of the stereo field. I would imagine I hear some of this in the right side of my speakers currently. So yeah, let's see, moving right along. Asymmetrical distortion or asim distortion. This is a bit more of a gritty distortion. It's not very clean. It's a little more aggressive. So I put that there. I just felt like it sounded nice. There's really no like formula or anything as to why I did it. I was just flipping through the presets and adjusting some knobs, and this is what I came up with, and I liked it, so I kept it. And that's, like I say in all my videos, guys, experiment, because you don't know what you're gonna find, and you might find something you like. So moving right, I don't know why I have span on these. We get fab filter. There's a mid-side EQ. And I cut all of this stuff out of the sides. All right, not really sure what I was thinking here, but essentially I cut out a lot of lows and highs, as you can tell. I think, are these, Oh, okay. So it doesn't even matter. It's cut out of both the mid and the side and all of these things. So, oh, yeah. So just really cut out all the lows, cut out a lot of the highs, helped it sit better in the mix. I think I cut out some more highs and some more lows. Looks like it. Yep. Kept those mids though. Okay. And did I get another fab filter, huh? Oh, cut the highs out of the right side. Okay. So I suppose this was probably this was a move to make it fit better with the other layer that I'm going to show you in a second. There was a little bit of high end on the right side of the stereo field I didn't like. I just took it out with a high shelf. And now moving on to the last and final layer. Whoops. Cool. So this one's a little bit more clean, a little bit more upfront. Same deal. LFO, cut off. If you're seeing a trend here, I hope you are at least. A 4088. I guess I just liked how this sounded. Little bit of unison here. I tried to keep the detune the same on both. Not that it really matters. The phase is going to be different because it's a different wave, but I guess this probably just sounded good here. And EQ, again, pretty much the same EQ, cutting out the lows and the highs. I got a little bit of the hyper. This is slightly different. Little less hyper and a little less dimension on this one. I have reverb and delay on this, giving it a little bit of space in the mix, and I have some tube distortion. And what tube is, it's a bit of a cleaner distortion. So that's why this layer isn't as gritty as that other layer I just showed you. And what's nice is it provides a nice bit of contrast from that other layer and adds a nice texture to the sound, in my opinion. And really, I mean, this all is subjective. That's what music is. That's what sound design is. So whatever sounds good to you, probably good. So yeah, let's play them all together again. And oh no, you know what? Let's go over this. A mid-side EQ. I remember there was a really weird frequency in here, and I just notched it out. Did not want it at all. I know this is a really drastic cut, but I cut out the lows. I guess I took out some of the sides and the highs. I don't really know. Well, yeah, I guess that might have been called for. I don't know if I need this. I might come back and take that away later on in my mix. I think I was in a rush or something when I was EQing this, but took out some of the highs, took out some of the lows. Again, just to keep room for that sub bass here. Channel EQ. Oh, there were a bunch of weird rogue frequencies that I tried to take out, and I notched out the high end, or I not notched out, I'm sorry, high shelf. Put a high shelf on the high end. Wow. Add a little bit of left and right EQ. These are the same. Okay, so these are linked. I just want a little bit of a different roll off. I might end up changing this because I don't know if I did this for any particular reason, honestly. But I mean, like I said, if it sounds good, it is good. I'm going to have to make sure that the phase is okay on this sound, though. Anyhow, guys, that really sums it up, and I'll just play them all together for you real quick. Might need a little work. I might need to bus all these and kind of work on them together, glue them together with some compression, make them a little bit more cohesive. But for now, it's right about where I want it. I have the weight from the sub, I have the texture from the mid-range elements, and I have other elements around these sounds that are also filling out some of the higher end of the stereo field, so, and the frequency spectrum. So that's really it for layering, guys. I mean, you really want to know what you want when you're going into it. You want to have an idea of where you want to take the sound, and then you should really start to break down the sound into individual elements, because what's nice about this is if let's say I one of these mid-range elements is interacting with a lead or interacting with another element in the same kind of frequency range, um, I have the option not to go ahead. If all of these were one sound and if this was all made in one synth, which I'm sure is possible, um, you would have to pan that entire sound one way or turn the entire sound down with three separate synthesizers working on one sound and each synth having its own job within that sound. You can go ahead and let's say this is interacting with like I have a violin part in here and let's say the two are clashing. I can go ahead and I can pan this out of the way. I can turn this one layer down. And that way, I don't have to take any of these other parts. These other parts still can live wherever I set them if they're not conflicting. But if this is just one layer that's conflicting, now I can edit this appropriately to get it out of the way of that violin. I can also edit the violin as well, but your elements are going to fit together better, and you have more options when you're going ahead and actually mixing. So um, I hope that made sense. But anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to do a couple more videos on layering, so stay tuned. Um, as always, have a great day and happy producing.